Okay, so what if there were no MIT? Well, then there also might not be an internet, or email, or Ethernet, or a place for all those digital things you like to store in some cloud. You'd also have to give up holograms, a spreadsheet, 3D printing, GPS, and those cool computer-generated explosions in some of our favorite movies. You'd need to give back X-ray, handheld calculators, disposable safety razors, secure online shopping, HDTV, optogenetics, the solar house, microprocessors, Jack Flory, and, well, there'd be a whole lot less biomedical engineering. Theoretically speaking, we're going to need to forget Theory X, Theory Y, Chaos Theory, Black Scholes, Little's Law, quarks, computational origami, modern meteorology, and linguistics. There'd be way less artificial intelligence, and for that matter, a whole lot less real intelligence as well. You need to do without the queen of carbon science, the father of modern economics, and the leaders of the European Central Bank, banks of Israel, Chile, Cyprus, India, England, and the U.S. Federal Reserve. We will need to eliminate some languages, like Java and C#. Forget about text-speech recognition. Erase your texts and assume your phone is no longer as smart. We may as well go back to the first machine age. You would miss out on the first African-American architect. And there would be so much to unimagine and undesign. Rockefeller Center, the Lincoln Memorial, and that cool glass pyramid at the Louvre. We need to put an X through edX, MITx, and MIT OpenCourseWare, which would help to uneducate over 100 million people and delete that online education revolution. By the way, we're also going to need to give up our national water quality standards and sewage treatment. We'll unlaunch 9 flights to the moon, 6 lunar landings, 3 manned Skylab missions, and the future of space travel. There goes our understanding of nanoscale and our ability to see through brains. We'd have to unmap much of the human genome. We no longer have the first woman to chair the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. As a side note, we need to give up the DC-9, DC-10, F-15, printable robots, biomechatronics, liquid metal batteries, artificial skin, rayon, radar, metallurgy, solid-state transistors, CT scans, and condensed soup. Of course, this is just a partial list. An actual list would be exponentially longer and ever-growing. But fortunately, we don't have to give progress back. MIT is here. Our ideas never stop, and our ability to innovate is infinite.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Vince. I'm Innovation Director with Bouygues, and I'm happy to host you back. So I hope you had a restful and interactive break. What hands-on approach and concrete examples can we share to help innovate for sustainability in a transforming world? That is the purpose of the discussion that we want to have right now. To that effect, we have gathered an impressive set of executives who will share concrete examples from 3 corporations. Outside the Bouygues Group, I'm very happy to introduce Corine De Bilbao. After a long and successful career at GE, Corine, you have been appointed president of Microsoft France in July 2021 with over 2,200 employees in France. Microsoft works with a broader ecosystem of 10,000 plus partners to accelerate the digital transformation of French organizations towards a more sustainable and inclusive economy. Félicie Burelle is managing director at Plastic Omnium. Plastic Omnium is a $9+ billion sales automotive system supplier serving light, medium, and heavy-duty markets. Through its 150 plants worldwide and 37,000 people. Its 5 divisions develop and produce lighting, exterior body parts and module, energy storage, and depolluting system, including H2 and battery powertrain systems. And from our own Bouygues Group, Marie-Luce GODINOT joined Bouygues Construction in 2001, and she held multiple executive positions in the IT department before becoming Executive Vice President, Innovation, Digital, and Sustainable Development. And in September 2022, she joined our own Bouygues SA at group level as Senior Vice President, Innovation, Sustainable Development and Information System. She is additionally my boss. So, as you can see, a stellar panel of top executives, women, so forgive me if I'm a bit impressed. Now, let's dig in to our topic with our first question dedicated to the panelists. But before that, don't forget to click on to Pigeonhole and ask all the questions you want to our panel, because the second question will be yours coming from the Pigeonhole system. So, Corine, I will start with you. The global stakes of sustainability are overwhelming, as we all know. Can you tell us how your company concretely innovates for sustainability and how it makes a difference?
Well, first of all, thanks for the invitation. I'm super happy to be here with you tonight. That's my favorite topic, to be honest. You say it's overwhelming, but actually, I mean, the global climate change is not a new topic, because if you remember, the Meadows report is dated 1972, 50 years, and already said that there are limits to the growth and the limits of the resources we have on the planet. So 50 years after, we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do. What we're going to do, I mean, when we look at the results of the COP27, we already have a temperature rise of 1.1, and well, everybody says that most probably we'll go to a 2.4, 2.6. So there's a lot that we should do. And actually, when we look at our organization, what we can do in terms of global technology companies, well, first of all, I think everybody needs to kind of clean its garden, its own garden. And, well, you might know that the IT technology accounts for 4% of the global emission. And because it's been increasing with the COVID, with the development of hybrid world, it's actually going to be more 8% by 25. So first of all, we need to do something about it. So Microsoft has been taken a bold commitment because, well, we are committed to be negative in carbon by 2030 and to remove all the carbon that we've been emitting on the planet since 1975 by 2050. You might say those guys are completely crazy. Well, somehow, yeah, maybe. But the most important is that, and this is something which has been discussed before, is the measurement, that you measure what you do. And the data piece, and you will see in all organizations, measuring with data is super important. So when we look at what we've done in 21, we've been able to reduce our scope 1 and 2 by 17%, mostly because we're using renewable energy to feed our data centers. But I have to admit, and this is super important to be humble on this, that we increase the scope 3, of course. I mean, you are developing all the digital usage. And that's one of the big, obviously, of the big issue. So the data is super important, and we've been working on helping companies, ourselves, but also companies, to measure the CO2 footprint. I can tell you that today you can measure what's the CO2 emission of the Microsoft solutions. Whether it's cloud, whether it's your MS 365, that a lot of people are using. But we also can measure, I mean, what we produce in terms of organization. So measurement is super important. Once you say that, because there's a lot of things which are a little bit paradoxal in that topic. Everybody's saying, well, the emission of digital is huge. The reality, if when you use, I mean, your computer, your mail, your eventually Teams, the emission you produce is equivalent to a steak, which is 300 grams every year. That's it. The most important is about the servers. It's about the computer themselves. And this is where you need to work, and we've been working on recycle servers, circular data center that you can reuse the servers, because you might know, or you might not know, but the life of a data center, a server in a data center is 4 to 5 years. So it's super important to be able to recycle. The other thing which is important for company is the way you're going to use, I mean, your data center versus the cloud. There are independent surveys which testify that you can go up to 93% of energy efficiency by moving to the cloud. Not all the time, depends on the age of your data center, of course, of your servers, but it's up to 93%. So at a point where we are talking about, energy crisis, it's super important to, rethink the way you're going to use the data. And last but not least, the most important, I think, is that how digital can help the company who thrive for reducing their carbon footprint. And there are many examples. There is one I'd like to give, which we developed for Austria, where you know that you have vineyards in Austria, not only in Austria, but you have vineyards, and they were caught by the late frost. And in year 1718, they lost a lot of money because they couldn't plan for it. Well, by putting sensors in the vineyards, collecting the data, moving them to the cloud, analyzing with machine learning, artificial intelligence, you're able to combine, with weather forecast and help the vineyard producers to plan for the late frost and save a lot of money and a lot of damages as well. So this is one example, but there are many examples where actually digital technology can help you to reduce the consequences of the climate change.
Thank you very much, Corine. So, Félicie, I'm turning towards you. How does your company, a very different company from Microsoft, very digital, you are more on parts and for the automotive. So how does your company concretely innovate for sustainability, and how does it make a difference?
Well, first of all, just to take a step back at what is Plastic Omnium, what you have to understand is clearly innovation has always been really a driving force of the way we wanted to grow. And as you said, I think things have accelerated a lot over the last 3 years, but energy transition and sustainability is not a new topic, and is really part of the DNA and how we want to promote a greener mobility. So PO was born out of the idea that plastic could make vehicles lighter, and we discussed that a bit earlier. Obviously, that has been a tremendous enabler in growing the company, but today, not only are we facing the technological transition challenge, but also there's all this bad press about the fact that people have the freedom or not to move the way they want to move. So I think we are really into accepting the challenge of the energy transition and really making this pivotal move on diversifying into new products, new domains that are totally, it's a new game changer for PO. We used to transform plastic material, and now we have invested in developing fuel cell stack and also high pressurized vessels for hydrogen system. We have just invested also recently in a French company that is putting together some battery packs with all the challenge that we discussed also earlier. So we are really willing to go into this new dimension of what should be mobility for people tomorrow. So that, I would say, is a first way of answering the question. How do you position yourself to stay relevant in this market tomorrow? Second aspect, it's innovation should really be embedded in the way you develop now new products. And we talk a lot about eco-conception. We have put together, you know it, because Bouygues was part of this innovation challenge that we have launched, which is the challenge of this year is how to double the lifespan of a car. The idea behind that is really to understand how can the way people are willing to spend money in this object that can provide them a mobility, what would be this object tomorrow. And finally, obviously, targeting, reducing the way we emit ourselves carbon emission. But just so that you know, our scope 1 and 2, in terms of emission, only represent 1% of our overall carbon emission. Obviously, scope 3 represents a biggest part. It's 90%, the downstream scope 3. So we have to tackle that. And somehow that's what we are doing by investing in those new technologies and those new products of tomorrow that can sustain a sustainable mobility.
Thank you very much, Marie-Luce. I'm turning to you for how Bouygues concretely innovates for sustainability and how it makes a difference.
First, I must admit that we have a huge responsibility in this area. A huge responsibility because our impact on sustainability is very important in terms of greenhouse gas emission, of course, because more than 50% of the global emissions are related to our sectors of activities, which is quite huge. But also in terms of biodiversity or resource consumption. The good news is we are aware of this responsibility. We are conscious we must do something. So we made, as other companies, we made public commitment, including to reduce our footprint. We have submitted target to the SBTi, and three of our businesses have already been certified. But we have also a huge responsibility because we have the ability to change the way we are working, the processes, our methods, and we are able to develop and to create efficient solutions for sustainability. So we have the capacity to be actors of the solutions, and that is a huge responsibility also. But in this area, I think innovation is key. Innovation, and in particular technological innovation, will be key for solving or helping to solve the problem. The key word for me is impact. The question we always have to answer is, where must we put our efforts, our energy? Because the risk is to spread ourselves. There are many ways to innovate, and we must focus on what will be impactful. So first, of course, we can work on our own emissions. Measurement is key. We all say that, and Roberto said that earlier. It's a must. In our case, we know that the scope 3 is very important for us, more than 80% of our footprint. So we have to work on that. And we know that materials, and especially concrete, is an important part of our footprint, more than 30%. So with innovation on low-carbon concrete, by reducing or eliminating the clinker, we can achieve reduction of around 70%. So Bouygues Construction and Bouygues Immobilier, for example, have partnerships with Open Cement Technologies to develop such products. It's not an easy subject. It's very complicated because it combines technical subject but also regulations aspects. And it has also a very important impact on the way we are working on sites. So it's a very difficult and complicated subject. It will take time, but it is very essential to address this problem, this issue, because it can be impactful. A second way to be impactful is to work on circular economy, because with that we can dramatically reduce greenhouse gas emission, but also resource consumption. And here, the main difficulties is the maturity of channels and ecosystems, both upstream and downstream of the chain. And again, it mixes operational difficulties, regulatory difficulties, but it's a fundamental lever towards sustainability and to have a model of society that has less impact on the environment. For example, one of the last innovations of Colas is launching a platform network, Valormat Eco3. With that, it will increase the production of recycled materials by 50% by 2026. Yes, we can work on our own emissions, but we also can work on providing a solution to support the energy transition of our clients, which is very important, our clients and territories. And that's what Equans, for example, work on innovation around hydrogen, or Bouygues Civil Works around offshore wind turbine field. And to finish, I would just highlight all the innovation that allow our clients or the public in general to have a better understanding of the issues and the impacts. Without a shared vision, without a better understanding of the issues by our customers, by the society, by people in general, progress will be very tedious. And so it is this is just as important as our own activities. And that's why when Bouygues Telecom proposes, for example, Mon Empreinte smartphone to visualize its own emission of CO2, or TF1 with a Sustainable Development Barometer, it's very important because it's a way to better understand the issues at stake, and it's essential to collectively progress on that part. And if we want to succeed, it will be all together.
Well, thank you very much to all three of you. We see that those are very complementary industries that you are leading, and also very complementary topics. Maybe just a compliment, Corine, on your circular data center. Can you? I'm curious to know what. Can you tell us a bit more? What is in those circular data centers?
Yeah, as I said, well, what's important is that you solve your own problem, and that's the majority of the emission together with the computer. So basically, I mean, it's that you reuse the server into the data center. We have a factory close to that's in Denmark, close to it. We kind of refurbish it, and then you can reintroduce, I mean, the same server into the data center. We're gonna have 4 this year, but the objective is to have all the data center to be what we call circular. So that's part of the recycling. This is one of the big topic. Yeah.
Okay, and before we move to the questions, because there are several of them I see from Pigeonhole, maybe all three of you seem to agree that Scope 3 was a very big leverage for combating the impact. You have given us, Corine, an example with the vineyards, how you help your clients to work. Do you have, Félicie or Marie-Luce, additional examples on how you work with your clients to think or to find solutions?
Well, for instance, with some of our suppliers, what we do is that we work on retrofitting some of their trucks to update and upscale their fleet, and ourselves using their fleet to do the transport that we need. So it's a win-win approach. So we can retrofit their truck with hydrogen storage and fuel cell stack, and at the same time reduce their own carbon footprint, and developing that in other regions.
Very interesting. Thank you. Marie-Luce?
Yes, if we want to progress in terms of sustainability, we have to work both with our supplier and with our client. Why? Because, for example, if you have many ideas about what could be a green building or something like that, your client must be aware of that and must ask for that, because at the end there is a price for everything. If you want to put or to deliver timber construction instead of concrete construction, for example, it's important that our client agree with that. But it's also important that your supplier can provide low carbon solution, because it's not easy to provide that, and so you have to work both with your client for the demand and with your supplier for the offer, because in many cases we are integrator of solutions, and there must be solutions.
Yes, so working as an ecosystem and all the links in the chain. Thank you very much, all three of you, for this first round of questions, and I will now turn towards the Pigeonhole. With the first question that I will start addressing Félicie. I will combine two questions here. All three of you are in charge, or as directly or as executives of sustainable development and making it real in your company. So what are the major challenges or the major pain points that you suffer from while combating this problem? What keeps you awake at night?
The dynamic is not the same region by region, and we are global and we are covering all customers with footprints throughout the world. I would say in Europe we have a tough challenge. Europe has decided not only on the objective in terms of carbon emission reduction, but also voted some years ago on the technology, which is the battery. while other regions have not. And somehow, at least we see that in Europe, it kills a part of what innovation could bring to provide sustainable mobility. So I think it's a bit our challenge in Europe, or at least that's what is keeping us awake. How can we make sure that this path we are taking, we are not going to pay it down the road at some point, because other regions will have developed alternative solutions, and that at the end of the day, sometimes, you know, the debates we have on whether we should use electric and what kind of electric in cities, obviously are some problems that are very far away from people living in the rest of those countries, those regions, because at the end of the day, you still need something to move around, to go to the doctor, to buy your food, whatever. So I think somehow we have lost a bit ground on that aspect in Europe. And I hope, industrially speaking, of course it will have impact. It has already some strong impact. Let's hope that at the end of the day, it's not going to be lose-lose for Europe.
Come to kick us back. Marie-Luce, on the same topic, what are your main challenges in your group?
I think it can be almost the same. We are working in many countries, and in many countries the situation is very different. In France, for example, you have a regulation, you have something who push people in the direction of sustainability. It's after that it's not easy, because sometimes the regulation is so hard that it prevents you from using solutions you can use. But in other countries, it's not the case. In other countries, the awareness about sustainability is not the same. I must say that in some countries, it is not what is important for people. People have other issues in mind, and so you have convinced them to work on that. If you come with a sustainable solution, which have not at the same price of the normal solution or usual solution, you have to explain, and the awareness is not there. So you have a very important work to do with your client, with your customers, and with cities, to explain what you can do and why it is important to do that. So it's not the same. In France, sometimes the regulation prevents you to use some solution, and in some other part of the world, you could use solutions, but your client is not aware of that, and you have to learn and to explain things.
Corinne, back to you with the same question.
Maybe a little bit different. I think it will be the data accuracy, definitely. I mean, if you think about the CSRD, especially in Europe, and that it's coming quick, and if we want that to be as accurate as our financial report, well, I would say good luck, because so far, even independent survey, I don't know if you've seen that one from BCG, which is only 9% of company really measure, and it's 30 to 40% wrong, because it's Excel file. So when it comes to this, and we develop a tool which we call Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability that build a dashboard, but the problem is, what do you put as a standard into it? And this is where, I mean, there is by sector of activity, not any agreement yet on what are the standards, what do you measure. And honestly, the CSRD report is tomorrow in Europe. So that's, to me, which is going to be the most difficult. Because what you don't measure, you don't improve.
Yes, thank you very much. Coming back to the most liked question, actually, you're telling us how to fight the upcoming emissions, but what about the past? What about the past emissions since the start of all your companies? How do you plan to, what technologies or natural solutions do you plan to compensate for that carbon, or absorb that carbon emitted since the beginning of your companies? So we'll start maybe with you, Félicie, if you want. Yeah.
So first, for us, it's really about first working on today, so reducing energy consumption. Then about switching to renewable energy whenever it's feasible. So in some plants we have a wind turbine or solar panels. And then it's about compensating. And obviously we really want the latter to be the smallest part, because we believe that in terms of motivation and really making the best of this program that we have and to really empower people, we think that's the approach we are having. And I would say as for the rest, it's really about contributing to developing this alternative mobility. Capturing carbon is not something we are looking at. I'm not sure it would make sense. What we are clearly looking at is to work on all the recycle approach that could be done to this new mobility, because we are starting putting cars with huge battery packs on the roads, but it will take time before there's sufficient volume to actually find the right model business model for recycling. So working ahead of that with a customer, I think will be very important.
Corine?
That's a very good question, because this is very difficult. I mean, if we say by 2030 all our data centers are fed by renewable energy, we're going to go to zero plastic in our package, and all of this is still the future. So once, you do all of this, what we have to do is to compensate. And so we created a fund, which is called an innovation fund, where we put $1 billion, and this is to finance technology which don't exist today, because we believe that a lot of the technology we'll need to fight against global warming don't exist today. So we've been financing so far 300 projects. One was, you talk about CO2 capture, was about big fans to capture CO2, so it's not scalable yet, but those are the kind of project and technology we found, because none of the capital venture wants to fund. It's long term, so no one is going to give money. So that's the purpose of that fund. That's one example of what we do to compensate.
Thank you very much. Marie-Luce?
I must say that for now, what I said before, we have to focus, and we focus on preventing emissions to go into the atmosphere, and not for now for the past. So when we want to prevent emissions to go, we have to work on our own emissions and the emissions, avoided emission for our client, but we are not working for now on the emission which were emitted in the past. We are working, of course, of sometimes compensation, a project for compensation. Yes, compensation. Yes, we can do that, because for some project it's important to when you have do all you can to reduce the emission. At the end, you have a rest of emission, and then you can compensate. But it's only on this aspect we are working, because we must focus. We have so to do on this part for now that we must focus and not spread ourselves everywhere.
Thank you very much. So, unfortunately, we'll have to move very soon to the conclusion of our panel, although there are several questions remaining. But maybe I would like to touch upon a last one I think we did not address. It's the impact of the COVID and pandemic that has stricken all our companies. And how do you think, and I think we were discussing that at lunch with some of you, how do you think, how did this impact the way your companies are handling a sustainable future? Maybe, Félicie, we can start with you.
The period of COVID, post-COVID, has taken quite a strong toll on our teams, because since then, we never came back pre-COVID level in terms of market-wise. And the tension on supply chain, we see that with microchips, but not only microchip anymore, inflation and so on. The teams are really tied up in strong negotiation all the time. So I think we see, after 3 years, people more than ever need to give sense to what they do, to refine the motivation. So we had to rework a lot on the purpose and why we are doing that, and why we believe it makes sense. So that was the first part. Then the second part was bringing people back to the office, because we believe that a sense of belonging, we recruited a lot during the COVID, and when you recruit digital, at some point it's still good to see the people. So we wanted to bring them back to the office and to create this company culture, which we think it's important. Obviously, it's not easy. Expectations are very different from generation to generation and from country to another. So we have had to have a different approach to that. But it's tough. And I think for us, the biggest challenge coming in the years to come is really people and skill and their willingness to join an industry that today is suffering quite a bad image. And on top of it, when you have plastic in your name, it's not easy.
Yes. Marie-Luce, maybe on the same topic.
Yes, I think COVID has changed many things, but in many cases it doesn't change things, it accelerates things and trends, they were already there. I think you're right, Félicie, on the supply chain. We discover, perhaps too late, but we discovered that we were dependent on some part of the world, and that we need for our resiliency, we need to work on that. And I think that the pandemic focused on the fact that we have to think about the resiliency in terms of many things, in terms of supply chain, but also in terms of cities, in terms of energy, and so on. And so the resilience, which was a topic before, just became at the top of the
pile.
At the top of the pile. So it is, at first is that resiliency, I think. Yes, of course, it changed the way we are working, but also the change way we want to live. Also, we want to live with more nature in cities, for example, because it was so difficult to be inside, locked inside, that we want to have a nice place to live, and we want to work on that. And so it changed also what people want and what they want in their offices, what they want in their home. And it is important for some of our activities because we have to change the way we are designing things.
Thank you. And final word for you, Corine, on this one.
Well, I would say I don't believe in full remote work, but I would say we're promoting hybrid work, and definitely the development of hybrid work had a positive impact on sustainability because reducing transportation. So overall, the equation is good. Second topic on what you said on supply chain resiliency, we had a lot of demand from customers looking at the resiliency of supply chain, having more local supply chain, reduce logistics, the transportation, which, by the way, is good as well in terms of sustainability, apart from the fact that you better manage your supply chain and you have some sovereignty as well. So those are the two topics which have been the big trends after pandemic, definitely.
Well, thank you very much. And as a conclusion, I will ask you something which is hard, and this is nothing to do with the panel being all women. It's to conclude with 3 words. So each of you, what do you want the audience to take away and come back with in their own companies or corporations or institute regarding this topic of innovation and sustainability? 3 words.
I can start because you don't believe a woman can go with 3 words.
I said
it's weird.
I said it was genre neutral.
Okay, got it. So measure, I think you got it. Measure, reduce, and disrupt.
Thank you, Félicie.
And for me, it was ambition, agility, and user-centric.
And for me, to conclude, ambition, yes, action, and collaboration.
Well, thank you very much to all of you. Thank you so much for the questions.